van is stuck between a pair of ragged men pushing carts through market-choked alleys. Quote, "They never leave room," Mr. Ayub grumbles, sweating and honking his horn until the carts roll back just enough for him to squeeze the van through. Then, clinging to the steering wheel, he goes back to bucking, braking, and charging through throngs of shoppers in stranded taxis. Can you identify with that? Could you drive under those circumstances? The article goes on to say, now just pretend that you have arrived in Mumbai by air on a luxurious flight, and now you're trying to get to your hotel that's not near the airport. The cows move faster than the cars, the article goes on to say. So I'm just trying to give you a little of an international experience. Now, why does UPS want to be there? It's part of their international strategy, and they are latecomers to the India market. Others, such as Federal Express and Deutsche Post, AG's DHL, by the way, is Deutsche Post company, is a German company. They've already been there. Well, it goes on to point out, this is an English-speaking market of about 1.1 billion people. Can you identify with that number? What's the population of the United States now? 350 million? I think that's probably close to right. 1.1 billion. That's a lot of candy bars. 9% annual economic growth. Sounds good. Well-educated professionals in cities teeming with entrepreneurs trying to reach overseas markets. So they want to get their goods, including the shoe company, get the goods out of India into other places. Quote, "Sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between parked vehicles and those that are meant to be moving," says UPS Senior Vice President in charge of Southern Asia. Quote, "You could be stuck in traffic and get overtaken by a cow." How does it feel? You want to go to India? And she said no. And if there's any people here who are native of India, I don't mean any offense at all to the country and the culture, but it is different than what we're accustomed to. All right. Now, in your international experience, in your travel, and some have said Mexico, and I know Peru, and then the others are more Western countries, in Asia for yourself. We note that there's a difference among cultures and people's orientation to space and time. Reflect on your international travel and whether you noticed any difference in the local people and their orientation to space and time. Space means distances between people, for example, and orientation to time, which is meaning about clocks and appointments and the like. Did you, and compared to your home culture, which for almost all of you is the United States. Have you noticed, did you notice a difference? Yes, Trina?
One of the places that I went in Spain was Granada in southern Spain, and that was one place where especially I noticed that, first of all, people talk really close to you, which we're not used to here at all. So it was a little uncomfortable getting used to that at first. And then also just in the middle of the day, how everything shuts down and everyone takes a siesta, and the lifestyle is just so laid back and just so stress-free. And I really, really like that compared to here, where everything's just go, go, go all the time.
Okay, let me just stay with us for a moment, because I've experienced the difference in space, where in Brazil, for example, they really want to get in your face. And I mean that kindly. I realize that's slang for something more negative. But you're right up against the person. And if it's the opposite sex, I don't know what to do with it. You know, I was interviewed by a reporter for a thing I was doing, and she was standing just spaces away from me. And I knew there was a difference. And if you back away, it can get perceived as offensive, as an offense to the other party. So you have to kind of hang on to it, and if they have bad breath, don't worry about it. Don't break out any gum and hand it to them. Yes?
say with regards to time, like in Egypt, like they, well here in the U.S., if you're gonna have a business transaction, it's kind of like get in and get out, and they don't really take the time to get to know you. And in Egypt, they'll sit you down. They won't even talk about price or anything. You have to sit down, drink some tea with them first, and the transaction takes a lot longer.
Yes. That's the typical reaction of American managers, salespeople, and so on when they go outside the North American borders, at least. Do you know Professor Howell de Gouveia? Any of you? You don't? Well, he's a piece of work. He's from Brazil. And I said to Howell, when I came back from Brazil, several years ago, I was doing a workshop based on film, and they told me that we would start at 8:30 a.m. I got there early to work with the simultaneous translators to make sure we were okay, and then nobody showed up at 8:30 or at 8:45 or at 9. They finally started to show up at 9:30. This happened throughout the day, and I had to go with the flow. I mean, if there's nobody there, not much I can do. So we had a very successful workshop, finished it, had lovely dining, et cetera, et cetera. I came back here and I said to Howell, I said, what was going on? We had the thing announced to start at 8:30 a.m. and finish at 5 p.m. And I said, people didn't show up for like an hour or so later. He said, that's Brazilian time. There's a difference between Brazilian time and U.S. time. He half-jokingly said that when you make an appointment in Brazil and you show up within the same 24-hour period as the appointment, you're on time. Do the arithmetic. So you make the appointment for 1 p.m. and you show up at midnight, you're okay. It's not quite that bad, but it's not, and they don't have the siesta, but the whole thing with time is absolutely mind-blowing. And traffic. Going across the bridge, my host was driving his car, another car passed him, hit him in the side, kept on going. Just took the mirror off and just kept on going. Now, the example I use, you were talking about Egypt, and the example I use here, Egyptians usually do not look to the future. And as a state that they just can't put that together at all. But the whole business, how far apart you stand and the orientation to time has a big effect on what people are doing. All right, so let's give a go. I'll leave the rest of it to you folks. Let's go to this second film scene, which is on page 44, comes from the film Champoux, 1986, and sadly, the director committed suicide a few years later. He made some great films in the short time of his life. This is a satire that highlights aspects of Japanese culture. And let's see, the only two people in the room who visited Japan are yourself and me. Anybody else visited Japan? No. Okay, so between us, in your visit, well, my visit is fairly recent, like 4 years ago, and yours apparently is fairly close in time, maybe a little bit longer.
8 years ago.
Oh, okay, 8 years ago. But the film is anchored in 1986, and the director is making a statement about Japanese culture. And his history in Japanese cinema was this irreverent look at his home culture. And it's going to start with an image of truck driver Goro on his bicycle with a woman whose name is Tampopo jogging around the bicycle. And in the upper left, what I want you to watch for is in the upper left of the screen, a group of Japanese businessmen come down the stairs and they begin to walk toward a building. The building you will see, which I actually passed by in Tokyo, is a tall office building with a famous restaurant at the top of the building. That's where they are going.